Welcome, everybody. Before we start today, as you know, we highlight every month one of our very significant partners that we've had the opportunity to build a deep relationship with over time, and we've seen transformational results. We work with 29 different professional fields, but the field that is really exploding for us is public education. And so today we are having the superintendent of schools from Maguano School District, and they've had some really cool experiences. And so would you welcome Dr. Joe Cook to the stage, please? Thanks, brother.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share our story a little bit. I began as a superintendent in Maguano 2 school years ago. I just finished up my 3rd summer. And as a leadership team during my first year, we really started to identify some areas of growth. We did a great job with curriculum. We did a great job kind of with the teachers teaching, learning to teach and developing our curriculum, and really had high standards and great outcomes. It's a wonderful community, great students, great staff, and great families. But what we really were lacking was that idea of the leadership and the personal development. So in my first year, Phil came down and he met with us. We had the opportunity to talk, ask some questions, talk to some school districts that were engaging in the InitiativeOne work. And we decided to partner with InitiativeOne this year. And we had just a tremendous year. Academically speaking, our teachers and our principals are having some wonderful conversations. We're hearing the language of InitiativeOne. Our trust accelerators are happening well beyond just our administrative team that's participating. We passed a successful referendum, a $90 million referendum for a new middle school. Our high school ACT score in the last 2 years is up almost 1.5 points. We're just doing great things, and the conversations that we've had at the table with InitiativeOne have really pushed us as individuals and us as a team forward. So for anybody who would be considering this, it has been the most meaningful and beneficial professional development that I have had. I do have a PhD in leadership, and I would say that the last year has taken every lesson that I had learned, and it has really pushed all of that forward. So thank you, Dr. Fred. Thank you, Phil, for all you've done for our organization. Next year, our administrative team is going to be engaged in this. We have 24 administrators, 11 of which are within their first 2 years. This shared experience has really helped us grow to the point where now we are pulling our teachers in, and we're going to run a cohort of 26 teachers through it from all 8 of our schools. So we're going to be investing again for about another 2-year period of time to get our teachers on board. One little aside from it, from a cultural standpoint, in my first year, we turned over 11 of those administrators were new. We hired 44 professional staff during that time. This year, we only hired 12. So we went from 44 to 12. The people that we hired are outstanding, and they're being developed with these principles in mind. So thank you so much.
I want to give you a gift.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, you ready to roll?
Yes.
Okay, so today is the 3rd part of my very intentionally designed 3-part series. I started off with talking about the 7 key areas that we have to master if we're going to live a high-impact, intentional life. The first week I got through 2 of them, and then last week, the last session, I got through 2 of them. And so we're going to finish up the list today. But let me say this. This applies to institutions, it applies to corporations, it applies to organizations, and it applies to our lives personally. None of us ever build a high-impact life by accident. It is never a result of luck. It is the result of very intentional decisions on how we're going to live our lives, whether we are going to be drawn in by the wider society and the current moments, the current things of the moment, or are we going to rise above the noise, and are we going to live centered within our own sense of purpose. And we know that less than 1% of people experience that kind of life. We also know that because of that, those same people go to work. And it's not a surprise that you get the same experience. And so we know in our work with global corporations that are among the best of the best, that they are very, very deliberate in what they say yes to and what they say no to. And we're going to be talking about that in a few moments. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to ask you 6 questions. It's going to be a highly reflective time today, but I want you to think about 6 key questions and how you will respond to each of these areas. Tracy and I have a lodge on Washington Island. And when you get on the ferry to go to Washington Island, you can see out to our right an island, a little tiny island called Pilot Island. And it was just a little rock sticking out of the shoal. And about 150 years ago, the U.S. government went out to that little island to commission the lighthouse that had been built on that island. There was just one problem. When they got out there, it was on the wrong island. And it was in the middle of a shoal. And ships were being grounded on the shoal instead of being guided away from the shoal. And they asked, how in the world could you make those kind of decisions? The reality is every one of us have made poor decisions in our lives. Would you agree with that? And one of the defining differences between those who are common and those who are making a deep impact upon the lives that we are surrounded with is that there is a very clear pattern of how we make decisions. And so the two biggest definers that separate great leaders from everybody else is, number one, how do we deal with problems? Do we put issues on the table? Do we confront them? Or do we leave them under the table in our lives and let them fester? Effective leaders go after it. They deal with it at what we call a crumb level, not Thanksgiving dinner. And you know what we mean by that. Most people are conflict averse. And as a result, that is why when you avoid conflict, you only raise the level of conflict. And so we're going to, when we make poor decisions, they can follow us for a lifetime. But at the same time, when I make excellent decisions, they can follow us for a lifetime. And so we want to be in the population of those folks that our lives have been defined by stacking one day at a time, one good decision at a time, another good decision at a time. It's not brilliant. It's not magic. It's not all this explosion overnight. It is being consistent in our mindset and how we approach people and decisions. You ready to talk about that? So the first question I want to ask you is this. Will I spend my life being furious, or will I get curious? Let me ask you a question. Has the level of anxiety raised in our country? Has the level of anxiety raised in our country? It is crazy. This past week I was talking to a former school superintendent. Chris and I went out to pick up a load of wood, and this gentleman was taking. He looked like a lumberjack, and I asked him what his name was, and he told me, and I immediately recognized his name as a newly retired superintendent of a school district. And I said, why are you doing this? It is so different than what you were doing before. And he said, I'm tired of the crazies. And the crazies are everywhere. He said, the crazies are in the schools. The crazies are in the boards. The crazies are in the parents whose little Johnny never makes a mistake. And he said, I found the level of anxiety just driving me crazy. Have you ever felt that way? And so you all, you're not going to change that. You're not going to change that. But you can change how you respond in the midst of it. You can make a decision that I am not going to be drawn into that, but I am going to develop a mindset of calm and evenness, and that I'm not going to react to the events of the day and let that pull me in. And so I may have already read this statement earlier, but it's so good. It really applies to all of us. It's a statement by Warren Buffett. And he writes this: you will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. He said, to everything that happens around you, around us every day, whether it's the actions of others, whether it's politics, whether it's our social circles, whether it is the social events of the day, the changes in the stock market. He said, true power is sitting back and observing things with logic and curiosity. It is not reacting, but saying, I'm going to watch this from a distance. And if words and actions of others control you, it means everything and anybody else can control you. Does that make sense? Recently, I was dealing with a major conflict, and I was helping someone walk through it. And I called one of my friends who was a psychologist, and she gave me some great advice to give to this gentleman who was just caught up in all of this drama in his life. And I described a certain situation, and she said, here's what I do. Whenever I get involved in a high drama situation, I like to pull out my phone. And I like to look at it from a distance and take a picture. And I said, why do you do that? And she said, because it's me looking at it objectively, observing it instead of being involved in it. And so one of the things as leaders requires executive skills of being able to detach and watch drama from a distance. How many of us have drama in our lives? I am shocked. I'm shocked that half of you lied because you didn't raise your hand. And so are we going to be pulled in, and are we going to be whipsawed every day based upon the latest headlines, the latest news? What we know is that leaders who have the highest level of credibility in today's cultures are leaders who do not react. They respond. They know that the secret to success is that moment of the pause between the stimuli and the response. How many of us have ever regretted reacting too quickly? We all have. And we have made a bigger mess than the mess we were addressing because of how we dealt with the issue. Man, emotions are hard to control, aren't they, you all? And I've told people, don't deal with issues when you are emotionally upset. And then I have those moments in life that it feels like, well, this is one of those exceptions. It is so clear what is going on that there are no two sides to this issue. It is so clear, and this is the exception. Have you had those moments? Let me give you a little bit of advice. That moment that you think is the exception is the biggest thing that can't be the exception. And so, am I going to be a leader, a person, whether I'm a parent, whether I'm a CEO, a superintendent, an executive, a teacher, a director, whatever it is, am I going to be the kind of person who will choose to be centered and calm and reflective? Take a breath and let it pass. If it's a problem today, it'll be a problem tomorrow. It's amazing what can happen when we let time settle in and allow us to look at our issues completely different the next day. Does that apply to anybody here? And so part of an intentional life is, am I going to be furious? Am I going to be caught up in all the anxiety of the day? Or am I going to deliberately detach myself from events and look at it from a distance with curiosity instead of being furious and angry and upset and anxious every single day? Oh, if you are a leader who is anxious, the people around you will be anxious. If you are a person that your emotions are going like this, up and down, you will have a team that is up and down. The team is no better than your ability to have emotional restraint and the discipline of self-control. That's your decision. It is a decision. Am I going to react or am I going to respond? Am I going to stay curious or am I going to get furious and upset? That is a decision that we can make every single day, multiple times. Would you agree with that? And so that's decision one. It's a critical decision that separates you from the rest of the population. Here's question number two. Are we going to rise above the noise or be pulled in by the chaos of the day? Here's what I mean by that. Dr. Dean Miminger, a famous American psychologist, said this: when you are drawn in by anxiety and depression and heartache, one of the most powerful ways to rise above that is to make a conscious decision to serve other people. It is to make a conscious decision to serve other people. The other day, I was talking to Tracy about some things that I was worried about. It was crazy. I was worried about my two pugs, the one that I told you that I dislike. Actually, I used stronger language than that in our last session. And I found myself, they're twins. And I found myself saying, which one's going to die first? And how will we take care of the one that's still surviving? Because I'm finding myself think about this, and they're healthy. And Tracy looked at me and said, "What is wrong with you? You have way too much time right now. You have way too much time." Have you ever seen someone become an Eeyore because they have too much time? Have you seen that? I have found that the recipe for overcoming negativity and anxiety and reactionary living is to make a decision that I am going to pour my life into other people. I am going to pour my life into mentoring, teaching, equipping, helping other people to be better, helping them to find their dreams, helping them to find their goals. It is amazing what happens to the level of your anxiety when you become a servant instead of someone who is reacting to the moments of the day. We talk about it at InitiativeOne. We have a variation of John Maxwell's leadership ladder. And we talk about the 5 levels of leadership. Level 1 is command and control, do what I tell you to do. That no longer works well in our society. Level 2 is leadership by relationships. And you cannot lead without developing relationships, meaningful, deep relationships in today's culture. Level 3 is leadership by results, which means that there is a great balance between relationships, accountability, goals, and strategy. But if you want to really start making a huge difference, You have to reach level 4. And level 4 is leadership by reproducing yourself. It's leadership by mentoring. At level 4, those are the leaders who have huge internal followings. People love them, people trust them, people believe in them because they are the ones that are pouring themselves into people around them every single day. It's not about me, it's about you. You ever been around a leader that was all about them? Have you? Does it cause you to just want to be like them? No, we know if you're going to be a game changer, whether it's in your church, whether it's in your company, whether it's in your family, you cannot do that without an intentional decision that I choose to serve others. I don't want this to be about me. I want to pour my life into other people. I want to be an encourager. I want to be someone that will look at me someday and say, without you being in my life, I would not have had this opportunity. That is amazing leadership. And it is rare leadership. And it takes intentionality to keep that mindset in a world that it's all about us. It's all about acquisition. It's all about status. It's all about achievement. It is rare to find that. Oh, by the way, only 1% of all leaders reach level 4. Only 1% of all leaders reach level 4. But I will tell you, you can reach level 4 if you make a determination that I'm going to care about the people that I lead. I'm going to show compassion. I had Pete Carroll, who is now the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. One day I asked Pete, I said, Pete, of all the teams that you've led, and by this time he had been coaching for 38 years, I said, of all the teams that you've led, and you've had a number of championship teams, what was the commonality between your best teams? Your highest performing teams. And I expected him to say, well, it was the teams that we got the draft right. It was the teams that we had the highest level of talent. It was the teams where we had our best quarterback. And he blew me away with his answer. He said, Fred, this is very un-NFL-like, but I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. He said, I've had 4 championship teams. And none of those 4 were among my most talented teams. None of them. But they made up for talent because of the mindset that they had with each other. And he said, Fred, they loved each other like a band of brothers. They worked on being there for each other. They worked on sharpening each other. If there were sideways accountability conversations that needed to happen, they didn't need the coach to do it for them. They cared enough to tell each other the truth. They cared about each other to raise each other's games. If someone's attitude was off, there was going to be a conversation about it. If someone was doing great, there was going to be praise about it. If someone was in a bad place, there were going to be conversations about it. And he said that is part of loving each other as a team. And that while that may sound sappy, I will tell you the research shows today over and over and over that those teams who care about each other deeply as human beings first will separate themselves from other teams. Google spent $100 million in a study trying to figure out why some of their teams are far better than other teams, even though they're in the same building, same company, same values, same teaching, same culture. And here's what they spent $100 million to learn. Their best teams were led by leaders who loved their teams. And they were led by leaders who were interested in your vacation as whether you got yesterday's responsibility done. There was a coach, it's a great book, you need to get it. It's called The $1 Million Coach. And it was about a coach that was a somewhat successful head football coach at Holy Cross, which is in the Ivy League. And he didn't even win very many games in the Ivy League. And eventually he retired, and he moved out to San Jose, California, and he became, through one-on-one relationships, the word started spreading. This guy is great at coaching leaders. And he ended up coaching the CEO of Google, the CEO of Facebook. You name any star company in the state of California, this guy was coaching. And here's what he did. He drove these high-powered, age-driven leaders crazy. He would start off, he would go into a team meeting, and he would say, okay, I have a question for you. How was your vacation? And the CEO, you could see them squirming, just squirming. Wait a second. We've got strategic planning to do. Why are we doing this? This is so off target. And yet, he'd stay the course. Well, why did you like your vacation? What was your favorite thing to do on your vacation? Why did you need your vacation? And how did your children feel about your vacation? And he would go on, and people would start to talk about the parts of their lives that they never told anybody about. And this guy, by his example, started teaching leaders how to lead by putting people first instead of strategy first. And showing them that I care about what's going on. I care about your story. I care about the pain in your life. I want to know how's your wife doing in recovering from stage 4 cancer. We've been taught that you separate both. But the reality is, those effective leaders today make a decision that I'm not going to separate both. And if you're one of those leaders who say, I'm not going to be one of those foo-foo leaders, I will tell you that is not only not foo-foo, that is cutting edge. It is cutting edge. 70% of today's workforce will be turned off by a leader who does not care about them as human beings first. And you know why that's so hard? Because you got to get vulnerable. When you ask them the questions about their lives, they may tell you things that you weren't expecting. And you won't be in control of the reaction. Today, am I going to be a leader who coaches? This is question 3. Am I going to be a leader who coaches, or I'm going to be a leader who controls? Make sense? Today, the greatest leaders are those who are mentors. They're constantly looking for opportunities to sharpen their people. It is a decision to become an other-centered person. You guys with me? How come you're so quiet? Am I boring you? There's a lot of reflection going on, isn't there? Anything on chat?
There's some back and forth in the chat. One question was posed: with so many teaching servant leadership, why are so few leaders truly doing this? And the back and forth was, there was a response about the misunderstanding around servant leadership, how many people equate it to being passive and over-accommodating. So can you speak to what servant leadership is and why it might be so rare?
Servant leadership is bold. Servant leadership is not squishy. Servant leadership requires courage. It requires a culture that you are going to seek the best for the other person, even if you have to do things with them that are painful for them and painful for you. Regina, one of our facilitators, we were leading a group for a group of executives in a company this week, and we were talking about accountability. And accountability is helping other people to win. It's helping them to honor the commitments that they have made to themselves and to other people. And Regina was talking about when she came here, she couldn't wait to come because we kept talking about that we're here to be for each other and that we have a servant leadership culture. And she said, I was shocked when I first got here, because that also meant if there was an issue between me and another person, we were going to put it on the table. If there was an issue that someone else was not coming at 100%, we were going to put it on the table. If there was someone who was not prepared, we were going to put it on the table. You all, that's servant leadership. Servant leadership is pushing someone else to maximize their impact. Because when they are maximizing their impact, they are in a position to win. Make sense? That's why, because, listen, you've heard me say that the average person from 0 to 10 has a self-belief level of 2.7. At 2.7, your narrative is, I'm not enough, I'm filled with self-doubt, I'm scared to death that you're going to find me out, and I certainly don't want to upset you. Because if you're going to be upset with me, I'll be upset with me because I've given my power to everybody else in my life. 2.7 people don't have accountability conversations. 2.7 people don't have, listen, why did you come to me instead of going to Bill? Why are you talking to me about Bill instead of going to Bill? You need to go to Bill and deliver your mail to the right address. Well, I can't do that. I'm conflict averse. Well, you're not conflict averse that you were ripping him up behind his back. And so as adults, we're responsible for what we say and what we do. And servant leadership cultures are adult cultures. They are not wimps. You heard me say a month ago, they're not weenies. That's a scientific word. They go after it. If there's an issue, they go after it. And if you're not working on your level of self-belief, changing it from I am not enough to I am enough, you're not going to become an effective servant leader. It requires a deep level of inner work to get to that level of elite leadership. And it requires a decision to be that kind of courageous leadership. It requires courage to sharpen other people. And you better be open. If you're going to give feedback, you better be open to receiving feedback. Don't give out what you are not willing to receive. That's why it's so rare, Chris. It's far more than saying, I'm just going to serve other people. It is hard work, and you have to begin working on yourself first. Here's the next question. Am I going to grow, or am I going to live in status quo? Am I going to be one of these people that good enough is good enough? Am I going to be one of these people that I have arrived? I've been on this job, I've been in this industry for 25 years. I'm not going to listen to some young Turk that's only been here for 2 years. They have nothing to teach me. They don't have my experience. And I will tell you, there is a leader who is very unwise, if not stupid. Because in today's world, there are people who have various experiences and that anybody can teach anybody. And anybody can receive input if you have a mindset that I want to continue to get 1% better every day. You're the kind of person who could read a coloring book 6 times and still get something out of it. Have you ever been around someone? Well, I've already done that. I've been there, done that. I've already been to 3 of these courses. What can you possibly teach me? You ever seen folks like that? That is not a leader. Whenever I see a person with that kind of mindset, I instantly go to a place, do I want to invest in someone who doesn't have a problem? It takes a conscious decision to say that I want to be part of a team that wants to grow. I want to be a part of a company that is reinventing itself, that 3 years from now, even though they are successful today, they are going to look completely different than they did today. And they're going to be better tomorrow because they're always looking for opportunities to get better. And that requires humility. It requires selflessness. You all, this stuff sounds easy. It sounds soft, but let me tell you, it is hard. Based on the question that we heard, why do so few people rise to that level of leadership? Here's my last question. Are you going to have a life, a family, a company that lives by purpose, or are you going to be in the people-pleasing mode? When you are in the people-pleasing mode, you are trying to be all things to all people. And when you try to be all things to all people, you will end up being nothing to everyone, and you will lose yourself in the process. That goes for companies too. You ever seen a company that lost its way? Because they're trying to be so many things to so many people. If this customer wants me to do this, I'll do this. If this customer wants me to do this, I'll do this because he said if he doesn't do this, he's going to go over there and start doing business with them. The greatest companies know who they are. They know their strengths. They know their weaknesses. They know where they shine. They know where their sweet spot is. Where is the best version of themselves. And nothing is going to pull them away. And when they make decisions based on principle and what is our standard. Principle, which is this on purpose and is this within our values? And does this meet the standard that we've always... They don't go, well, if I make this decision, the politics in our organization won't allow us to do this. Great teams are not politically driven teams, they're purpose-driven teams. And they will always put purpose ahead of personality. And sometimes that's hard, isn't it, you all? And they will say no far more than they say yes. The more rigorous you become, you have to decide, am I going to live a shotgun life or a laser beam life? What's a shotgun life, you guys? What's a shotgun life? Busy. You are all over the map. Listen, do not equate motion with achievement. Do not equate busyness with impact. Purpose-driven people are this narrow in terms of what they focus on. The average company cannot do any more than 3 major initiatives at any one time. The average person cannot handle any more than 3 major initiatives in their life at any one time. I heard my son teaching a group yesterday virtually, and I heard him say, these are the 3 goals in my life right now, my 1s and 2s, where I get 80% of my impact towards my purpose. Chris, what were they? Health? Health and family. That's 3 right there. Health and family, that's 3. That's West Virginia. That's West Virginia map.
You know my third?
Yep.
My third's my career.
And your career. And when you decide what you're going to focus on, you have to decide what you're not going to focus on. That's the hardest part. Because if you're going to be a true yes person to your purpose, you've got to be a no person to a lot of things. And that's going to disappoint some people. We don't do anything that is not within our purpose. Well, so-and-so is going to get upset. If so-and-so gets upset with us because we are being true to who we are as a company, as an organization, as a person, that person is really not my friend. That person is not really not my friend. My friends will recognize that I have the discipline in my life and the tenacity to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that because right now that is not on purpose for me. I'm sorry, but that's not on purpose for me. And you're sincere, you're not using that as weaponizing language to escape responsibility. Make sense? Are you purpose-driven or are you people-pleasing driven? That requires a lot of inner work. Those are the kinds of decisions that you have to face that are very difficult to deal with. But the great ones will address it. Any comments, questions? We've got how many minutes? We're done. Okay. Okay. You all? Yes, sir.
Listening to you talk about this, Dr. Fred, it's interesting when you talk about servant leadership and you talk a lot about executives and CEOs. I think where you can really, for me, land is in the middle leadership. I can't wait for for my leader to be great. I have to control what I control. If I want to be a true leader, I also need to learn to lead up.
Oh my gosh. Brad, you practice that just like you said that just the way we practiced it before this session. Did you hear what he said? Have you ever been around someone who says, well, my leader sucks. He's horrible. She's horrible. And we're not ever going to be on track until my leader gets his act together or we get a new leader. There's just one problem. You're the problem, not them. Effective leaders don't do this. They do what? They do this. You can't control anything that person is not doing or doing, but you can control you. It's amazing how other people can change in your mind when you are doing the changing of yourself. I've worked with a lot of marriages over my life. I'll never forget the lady who said, I am moving to California, and that will be the answer to my marriage because he won't change. And in servant leadership mode, I said, well, that's a problem because you is taking you with you to California. And then he's not the problem, you're the problem. And until you change, this marriage has no hope. And Miss Eeyore leaves, ticked off at me, just a gift. And then Mr. Eeyore comes in. You know what? I'm so glad she's going to California because she's not changing and we're done. And I say, there's just a problem with that. You is staying here with you. And she isn't the issue, you are the issue. Until you start working on what you need to bring to this table, this marriage has no chance. It's amazing how teams begin to rocket like this in performance when every member of that team gets out of blame and starts getting into self-reflection. I don't have time to worry about someone else who needs to change to meet my standard, because I have a hard enough time meeting my own standard. That is a leadership mindset. Thanks, Brad. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you. Reflect on one or two things. Here's what I'm going to ask you. fjohnson@initiativeone.com. Many of you, every time I do this, I get flooded. 1 to 2 commitments that you're going to make as a result of this and being challenged. 1 to 2 commitments on an intentional decision that you have made in an area that you need to grow. 1 or 2 commitments. Send it to me and tell me. Okay? Thank you, you all.